call him Mr. New Construction. You know we have a resource at our disposal here in Nest Realty's Greg Slater. How long have you been in this game we call real estate?
I got in the business in 96. I was licensed in 97.
So he's got a good night. That's 26 years?
Don't do the math, please.
26 years.
Yeah, no, I moonlighted with a real estate company and a builder at the same time, just a few years out of college, and learned both those businesses from the inside out before I actually got into sales.
So, new construction, I know there were questions coming in the middle of the week for Greg Slater as we promoted that he would be on today's show. If you guys want to grab your coffee and sit back and learn from a guy that I would say is at the pinnacle of the profession when it comes to new construction. I mean, there's probably no guy that knows the new construction side of the business better than him. We're going to ask him questions. We can take questions from you, the viewers and listeners. See one already coming in here on Twitter on cost of goods and whether commodities are dropping in price that could alleviate some of the stress the builders are experiencing at the beginning of the year. I'll throw that to Greg. Thank you for that question from BDF on Twitter. Guys, jump in with any perspective. Bill McKenzie, hello. I believe you're watching in the Rose Hill neighborhood. Bill McKenzie, welcome to the program. Let's welcome Lynchburg to the show. We'll have fun today, guys. Judah, are you ready to rock and roll? Okay, let's do it. Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk. Thank you kindly for joining us. This is Real Talk with Keith Smith. Keith Smith doing his best grandfather impersonation right now. Honestly, he is a fantastic grandfather. He and Yona are in Connecticut with their 2 grandchildren. But folks, we have a more than ample, more than capable replacement in Greg Slater. I mean, this guy has been on the show and the network a handful of times, 8 or 9 times, and he is Mr. New Construction. Nest Realty's Greg Slater. 26 years of experience in real estate. We do that not to date him, but just to show the amount of experience the man has in this game we call real estate. Judah, let's go to the studio camera and welcome Greg Slater to the program. My friend, 26 years in the business. You know the business inside and out. You got ties to the most reputable builders in town. You love working with families. Talk to us about this experience and how you got into real estate and new construction in general.
Oh, that's a good story. So I went to Virginia Tech. I think I've covered that here before. And I went back to Richmond. I'd gone to high school in Richmond. And I went to work for a sporting goods firm. And within a couple of years, I was actually a sporting goods buyer, an institutional dealer. I kind of loved it. But my college roommate was a guy named Josh Goldschmidt, who called me. We came here for a weekend. Somebody had a pig roast over in Afton, and on that weekend he said to me, me and my partner are buying a real estate company, and we need someone to come run it. And I said, I don't know anything about real estate. And he said, you're a smart guy, you'll figure it out. And so on Monday, I went back to my job and gave my 2 weeks notice. And 2 weeks later, I showed up in Charlottesville. I moved into a house with 4 other guys on North Avenue. Everything I owned fit in my Nissan Sentra. One trip. And that first Monday, I spent the morning in a builder's office starting to see how the mornings were like, getting all the guys out the door to go to work. And then he drove me down to Fluvanna County, and I sat outside this little office. They bought Monticello Country Realtors. And so I immediately started doing all the administrative jobs that come with the real estate business for half my time, and the other half my time I worked doing every job you could have almost. And I didn't ever supervise construction or building homes, but everything you can have administratively in the home building.
So you're in your mid-20s?
I was 26 years old, yeah. And it just took off from there. I was around some really smart people that were willing to teach me the business, and eventually I got to the point I was ready to step out into the world, on my own. Along the way, managing broker, things like that, whatever it took.
And now you got ties to some of the best builders in the market. Frank Bailiff, a friend, new construction inside and out.
I've been lucky, this business has changed a lot since I got in it. In the early 2000s, the real estate companies were the developers or put up the money for the developers, and they the builders had to work with those sales team created by the communities, and it was a much more realtor sales controlled environment. I'll attribute some of this to when Ryan Homes came along with their own salespeople. That had a dramatic impact on our market in a variety of ways, not just from the land grab that ensued as people realized they needed to start competing with their land acquisition, but it made other builders realize, maybe having people that work just for them, selling homes for them, was better than having a team of realtors who were trying to represent several builders. So I got a lot of experience, though, working for different builders, from Hayden Homes to Churchill Homes to Barry Mead Homes. The list goes on and on. But eventually I ended up as the director of sales and marketing for Churchill Homes. And in 2007, I helped them sell about 80 homes. In 2008, they were gone.
Wow.
And along with about half of our other builders in the marketplace. And so I just rolled up my sleeves and went to work trying to be more of not just a new construction guy, but a realtor for buyers and sellers. And from there, luckily, I met a guy named Drew Holsworth who started Piedmont Realty Construction, and he hired me to be his listing agent until eventually Stanley Martin purchased them. Right now I represent Southern Development Homes, Frank Balliff. They're a production builder that builds about 100 homes a year, and I also represent Bramante Homes, which is a custom builder that builds about 12 homes a year. So they're very different business models. I have a lot of experience in both areas, but we're all one big happy family because those guys don't compete, and I can help both of them without having a conflict.
So this question's come in. This is from Laura, and she watches a lot of our shows. Laura, are you watching in the Keswick area, I believe? She says you guys talk often how in 2007, 2008, a lot of the smaller builders went out of the market. Please ask the guest on the panel, if the builders have recovered and if we're back to the same level of output as we saw in 2007.
Well, that's a great question. So one of the things I follow over the years is, or particularly during the recession, we didn't, the level of activity fell off so hard so fast. Actually, in 2005 was the highest level of volume we'd ever achieved in the MLS. So there was about 3,500 transactions for $1.27 billion, and it went straight down from there. That was the top. We lost a lot of builders. We reset the market by banks taking control of that lot inventory, and other bigger builders that were still around able to acquire that. But as we settled into things, the four builders that I follow are the four biggest builders in the market: Ryan Homes, Southern Development Homes, Craig Builders, and Stanley Martin Homes now. And they average about, coming out of the recession, they were up to over 70, and they were 80% of the market share. As of last month, or the first half of this year, they represent about 53% of the market share. And there's a lot of reasons that contribute to that, but the number one reason is, yes, after the recession, new builders emerged. Guys that had been in project management that were ready to step up and had the capital to create businesses. Drew Holsworth creating Piedmont Realty and Construction was a great example, which eventually, like I said, led Stanley Martin to the marketplace. Peak Builders, Matt Gruber was a guy that was working for another builder leading up to the recession, and he went out on his own. Now you have the second iteration of Drew Holsworth is Greenwood Homes. You have Evergreen Homes. You have Dobson Homes. He was a guy. I'm not sure where he was during the recession, but he was out there. But he does a lot more than he did back around then. You have Atlantic Builders in the marketplace now. I'm not sure we have that same level of medium-sized 10 to 20 builders, same number of those builders we had before the recession, but we have a healthy amount now.
Can we put in perspective, because there, I think, is a misconception out there how very difficult this profession is, and how getting from start to finish is sometimes unpredictable. We saw that during the pandemic as cost of goods just got so volatile. Lumber is a good example. A lot of these guys, the margin is slim for these homes they're building.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you the one story that will help you understand that. In 1997, I sold my first new home. The commission was 3% of the purchase price. I know I made more than the builder, and that's why I'm a realtor today and not a home builder. That was the first lesson I learned. And so, yes, I have I've invested in home builders. I've put my money out there with them. I've seen the books for many of these builders I work for. And yeah, there's a misnomer that these guys are just making huge amounts of money on these homes. It's not. The margin of error is razor thin. One problem outside of your control can erase 100% of your profit. Some builders have a very difficult time. It's the estimating up front that can get them in trouble. Even when we're in a stable cost environment, it's still incredibly difficult to estimate what, we're talking about thousands of parts, both man-made and natural, put together by hundreds of people in a regulatory environment. It is incredibly difficult, and every 6 to 12 month process that builds a home is a major undertaking in and of itself, ripe with risk.
Are the cost of goods stabilizing?
I don't think, maybe stabilizing, they're not coming down. So the guys I talk to, when there's something notable to talk about, we talk about it. I'm not sure what Christopher said when he was in here recently. When there's really news on that front, these guys will forward me the emails to show me what's going on, but I don't think they're coming down, but I don't know. I think what most of them would say, yeah, some things are coming down, some things are still going up, but it's not impacting the way we're pricing homes yet. Now, I have heard recently some builders have dropped their material cost increase language from their contracts. Not all, but some. Because that's what kind of got some of these guys in trouble out of the gates. The costs were going up while the homes were being built, and they had no way to capture that cost change with their clients. And so that got fixed in the contracts. But I think we're getting to a place where the conversations about the risk of the price changing dramatically while you're under construction is much less frequent now.
Neil Williamson, welcome to the program. Neil, thank you kindly for joining us on the show. You got the looks like the newsroom at NBC 29 watching us here on the feed as well. Greg, you have a question for Neil. In fact, there's a lot of questions coming in. How does local government regulation impact new home builders? Is it better or worse in the recent years? For Greg Slater from Neil Williamson.
I think everyone knows it's worse right now, and I think it's never been great. The biggest problem that's come up recently was just the amount of time it takes to get through the process, whether it's getting lots platted once they're approved, and the rezoning side of things. That is strenuous, to say the least, and costly. And then the one that kind of, I think, really caught us all off guard during the pandemic was just the amount of time it took to get a building permit. We were watching homes take 3 or 4 months to get a building permit, and while the cost of building them was going up before you even broke ground. And that was a very difficult environment. I've seen 2 emails in the last week. I know the Blue Ridge Home Builders have been working with Albemarle County very hard. These emails are coming out that are explaining the new processes and all the things the county is doing and trying to combat these things. But yes, it's difficult. For sure.
This question has come in, and this is from Kelsey, who watches the program. This is a great question. Do the rising rates impact new construction more than existing construction? Can Greg offer insight on how rising rates may influence new builds more than existing builds?
Well, from a straight affordability standpoint, I would say it's relatively equivalent. If you're trying to figure out what you can afford in a monthly budget, they're going to, that monthly payment you're looking at is going to be relatively the same. Obviously, there's a premium for new construction. There's a premium because the home is new, and then depending on the type of the builder you're working with, there's a premium for how much flexibility you have and customization is available to you. But the real challenge with interest rates in a fluid environment is the length of time you can lock your rate in relationship to when you can get that home.
Explain that to me.
So, I'm the builder, you're the buyer. You're signing a contract with me today. You're showing me a pre-approval that you can buy this home.
Okay.
But I'm telling you it's going to take me 12 months to deliver it. You don't know what your interest rate's going to be in month 11.
Got it.
Now, this is why you have to really work with pros and really talk to multiple lenders, because I've never become an expert on any product any lender ever has, because they change constantly with the market. For example, Fulton Mortgage, last year, I had someone in January, or this year, I had someone lock in January for a period of time. They were offering 1 year free rate lock while you built. right? And so that's the only choice in the marketplace. I don't think they're doing that anymore because that was before we
Rate
started
hikes.
getting these rate hikes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the hardest part about new construction. You need to have some bandwidth for your payment to go up because look, generally speaking, when you sign a contract for new construction, unless you've gone through the process with a custom builder and figured out every nut and bolt before you start construction, most of these production builders, you're buying some level of structural decision making, and you haven't been to the design center to do your selection till later, so you have to budget for the price to go up through the selection period, but you also have to budget for the interest rate to go up as well. But that's it. Trying to time it when that rate lock is, what kind of terms you can get, and some lenders are better at doing new construction than others. There's no question about it.
Spencer's got a question for you. When Greg comes, the questions come. I like that. Spencer's got this for Greg. With new construction being rather expensive now, can he highlight the pressure it's putting on existing construction from a pricing standpoint? We've noticed new construction popping up around our neighborhood, and as people list their homes that are existing construction, they're trying to ride or piggyback the coattails of the new construction that's coming to market. I mean, I think that's just normal, right? I mean, if new construction comes to a neighborhood, it's going to help drive pricing upward for everything else in the neighborhood?
There's a variety of relationships between new home pricing and resales. In general, when supply is low like it was and new construction is so expensive, it pulls up the resale.
Right.
There's a premium for new construction, and it can expand and contract based on market conditions. When the inventory is super low, yeah, that was just pulling things up. And particularly where it impacts price the most is where builders can't even reach, right? So if you're looking for a single family detached home in Western Albemarle and the starting price point is $600,000 anywhere in the Crozet area, and you have a $400,000 home, that becomes a real example of supply and demand. Who wants it the most? How many people want it? And who's willing to pay the most? And so we just went through that, and the adjustments were crazy in that regard. But when you're selling, though, in a normal market, when you're selling, you have to be cognizant of who you're competing with when you price your home. And one of the biggest mistakes I see sellers make over the years is they price too closely to new construction, right?
What should the delta be? I mean, I know there's no rule
varies.
of thumb.
There's no real rule of thumb. It's really based on market conditions and a lot of experience, because it's hard to explain what it's like helping so many people go through the new construction. I understand the buyer psychology of when they're, am I going to buy a resale? Am I going to build? I've just done it, over 1,000 times at this point in my career. And so when it's just kind of hard to put that into data, right? It's just a feel you have for when you're looking at what something's worth. I'll give you another example. Huntley right now in the city.
Off JPA, off Stribling Avenue, behind Dirty Nelly's.
Nice
great
community,
neighborhood.
Nice, great community.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
never really flourished.
HO8 community.
Yeah, but it never really flourished in that location, and sales languished, and values were in the 3s and 400s. Their affordable housing that was built in there 6-7 years ago, they took normal-sized lots, split them in half, and put these little small homes on them. 2 of them have traded in the last 2 weeks. I'm talking about the smallest homes in there on half lots for $500,000.
Wow.
And what people don't realize at a certain point, especially if little small detached home is actually competing with the big townhome, and if you don't draw the connections to those things, you can mess up your value too. But if you're trying to sell your home in an area where there's new construction, you have to understand what your new construction dollars buy you, because some buyers just want what they want. I'll give you an example. At Spring Creek, for years, there was an inventory of homes and tons of new construction. Spring Creek is one of the hottest new construction markets out there right now. You have 3 or 4 builders in there. You have a steady line of cars driving down here from Northern Virginia to retire. And they went from just 3 or 4 years ago, we only had a handful of sales in there that would break 500. People are pushing up 8, 9 and breaking $1 million in Spring Creek now. It is amazing. And I'm talking about 30 or 40 new home sales a year in there, which is a fair amount. But the point I was as many resales as I've sold in Spring Creek, someone would price a home as a great deal, and let's say it was on the higher end of the market there at $550, and would get close to it, look at it a couple of times and not buy it, then they go spend $700 on new. And that's kind of the thing you have to realize. There's a certain amount, just because they have the budget to go $700 doesn't mean your home's worth that. People will spend more for new construction because they're getting exactly what they want. And that's the premium, exactly what you want.
Good stuff from Greg Slater. More comments for you, Greg. Are the size of homes changing for new construction? So this question's from Jordan. With cost of goods being so high, and Jerry, you've covered on the show so many times inflation and the labor shortage, please ask Greg if the builders are focusing on smaller homes now.
Well, so it's not necessarily the builders focusing. The builders haven't pivoted yet from anything that's going on in the market with their designs of their homes. That has yet to come. The biggest pivot I ever saw was, the hardest thing, one of the worst performing segments of the market were custom homes built in 2007 and 2008. They were super expensive. 2009 changed everybody's mindsets about housing, and those homes just did not translate in the new world. But right now, we're still behind the curve of builders pivoting. Builders are working on lots that are coming approved and ready to build on now, and it's the size of the lot that dictates the type of product they can put on it.
Explain that.
Well, so in the townhome market, that's one thing. Most of those lots are 21 to 22 feet wide, and the topography of the land dictates whether or not it has a garage in the front, a garage in the back, or a garage at all. But there's not much. There are some bigger townhomes out there now. They're getting extra floors and rooftop decks and all these spaces to help those first-time home buyers who are boxed out of the detached market get more of what they want in that attached product. But for example, on the detached side, we know these communities like Belvedere and Old Trail and even North Point, if you haven't been up there, these are lots where we talk about setbacks and width of lots, and you have plans that are 30 and 40 feet wide, basically, in the detached world while you're in these production-oriented communities. And, it's whether or not you put a basement on it and finish it or things like that, but we're not seeing a lot of we just can't grow these homes like the market may or may not want on these small lot environments because it's very limited. It's very difficult to design to. The half-acre lot communities in the resale market are the hottest segment of the market by far because I don't know where the next half-acre lot community is coming, but Highland Ridge, Oak Hill Farm, these places where the homes are less than 10 years old and on half-acre lots, Chesterfield Landing, Sparrow Hill. Someone just paid $775,000 for a home in Sparrow Hill. We've seen $800 twice in Chesterfield Landing. Just 2 years ago, these homes were closer to $650. And so, that's where the supply and demand kind of gets wonky. Now, on the custom side, when you go into the high end, people with the budgets they have, if you went from looking at an average lot for that 2 to 3 acre lot from 2 to 250, we're now at 350, 400 and up, and the investment just tends to grow, right? Because there's a relationship between the value of the home and the value of the land. I try to explain people when they ask me, they design a home, they get it priced, and they want my advice for, is this a good long-term investment? So it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot of it's subjective. I mean, is this the house you want and you're going to live in it forever? Yes. Then why does it matter? But at the end of the day, you don't want to make a really bad mistake with how you match a home and a floor plan to a lot because I look at a home in that situation like a mutual fund, right? Mutual funds are measured against the S&P and the Dow.
Yeah.
Some do better, some do worse.
Sure.
Houses are the same way. The market's going to do something. Some houses you stay above the market. It stays in high demand. More than one person always wants it, and that premium you paid for the lot or the features you put in it were the right features and it does better, but some don't.
So say you have a lot in Elmore County, half acre at $250,000. What's the ratio for the type of house you put on there? Is there a ratio for a $250,000 lot?
Well, first of all, there are none.
Okay.
But for a $250,000 lot for before the pandemic and the crazy cost increases, that wanted to be a $800,000 house, $900,000 house. But now, the other thing that was happening in Spring Creek or in Old Trail for a while, they were doing smaller and smaller lots, and we didn't have the bigger house. People were overbuilding on the lots. I've seen people put $600,000-$700,000 on a $100,000 lot, and that oftentimes doesn't turn out well.
This question's come in from Christopher. Dude, you got a lot of questions coming in here. Besides money on the balance sheet, how did the Big Four come out of the recession so strongly?
Being nimble, first of all, and surviving, right?
So that's Ryan, Stanley, Southern, and Craig.
Stanley wasn't here at that point. They didn't show up till about 2013.
Okay.
But it was, Craig Builders, Southern Development Homes, and Ryan were the big three that really came through the recession. Now, Ryan is a unique model to all the rest. They are a corporate home builder. They don't buy land. They won't put their stockholders at risk of the owning land as an asset and it depreciating. So they're in the middleman deal with the developers. They have options. They're actually building these homes and not taking ownership of the land until the home is actually finished.
Wow.
In some cases, at least that's the way it was coming out of the recession. Whether or not that's still the case, they may be not taking ownership of the land until the home is sold on it. Or other builders have to be more speculative. They have to take takedown schedules and they have to commit to buying a certain number of lots and selling on them. But these are guys that were just able to survive and not get put out of business. What put builders out of business was all the land they bought from 2005 to 2008 and borrowed money to do so, and then they couldn't make their interest payments. The lots depreciated. Just like we know people lost their homes, builders lost lots, homeowners lost homes because they couldn't make their payments. But it got to a point. I'll give you a prime example. Wickham Pond is a staple neighborhood.
Crozet.
In Crozet.
Yeah.
Two builders bought all those lots for $135,000 in 2006. Started building homes on them in 2007 and only got about 4 or 5 homes into the community before the sales stopped cold back then. Never seen anything like it. It was just over. And eventually those lots were foreclosed on and were consumed by another builder for half of that. They depreciated by 50%. And some of the builders that hung on a little past that and tried to make it work, I would meet with them and consult, and they're like, how do I build? There was no math that worked. You could not build on the home. The prices adjusted so much. If you had that lot that you overpaid for before the recession, there was nothing you could put on it and make money. And so it had to be taken back. The price had to be corrected so that it would work, unless you had the resources to just hang on to those lots. That led Eagle here for a while, right? They had the resources and they came here and started buying foreclosure lots. But they were here briefly and left there. They've never really had a strong foothold in the market.
More questions. Jerry, you and Keith often talk about why this isn't a real estate bubble, and you point to the equity that people have in homes and the regulatory environment around lending. Can you get Greg's take on this, please?
Why it's not a bubble?
Yeah. How many times do you get that question? A lot?
Not as much as I used to, because it seems like everybody has the same answer now, right? The market conditions are just different. Last time we had a whole bunch of bad debt, and then unemployment went crazy, and the whole thing fell in on itself. I'll never forget, I guess it was Time Magazine, House of Cards on the cover.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was it. We just have such a different scenario going on now by the way people are getting this low interest debt on these homes. They're putting more money down in a lot of cases. The affordability factor is so much higher. The supply just remains so low, and there's just still so much demand. At the end of the year in Albemarle, at the end of the 6-month period at Albemarle County, we were 16% less listings than we had last year. And then so I just looked ahead for the first half of July to see if where we're trending. Are we going to catch up some by the end of the year? We're going to fall. Right now we're falling further behind. In 2021, in the first 2 weeks of July, there were 217 homes listed in Albemarle County, resales. In 2020, if you want to go back even further, it was 193. This year it's only 152. So halfway into the month we're 40 to 50, depending on what year you compare it to, off in listings. So July is notoriously a seasonal part of the year. People take vacations. Everybody got their purchasing decisions made to get ready for school. That ship has sailed. But yeah, I'm a little concerned that the inventory isn't a little stronger right now.
Do you attribute that directly to rates?
I don't know what to attribute to on the supply side. We're just trying to figure out when we've exhausted all of the normal activity of people who want to sell versus the people who are being dragged to the market because they think it's a great time to sell. And that may be what we're starting to end, right? People came and sold their houses because they kept hearing the stories of crazy. The stories of crazy are less and less, and we are probably dragging fewer sellers, opportunistic sellers, to the market. But it's one of those things you can't really figure out until you get into each transaction and understand a seller's motivation versus a buyer's motivations and see if you can get them to come together. Carolyn,
watching the program. Carolyn or Caroline? I'm sorry if I'm messing that up, Caroline. Can you speak to not having more half-acre communities in Albemarle County, please? This is news to me, she says.
Well,
There's
it's
just not enough land.
Well, Neil, could you come on here and explain this?
5% of
it's
Albemarle County is for development.
Right, and anything that's in the growth area, you can develop by right, or you can develop with density. If you want the density, you have to go rezone it. A lot of these parcels aren't really economically viable at just chopping up into half-acre lots. They need to be more lots for the developer and the builder to be profitable. And so the county wants smaller and smaller lots, right? We need the density. If we're going to manage the growth that's coming, we need to do it on less land than more land in their eyes.
What's that going to do to the half-acre communities in the county? I mean, further prioritize them and drive tailwinds and value behind those? And he highlights Breezy Hill, Neil Williamson, as an example, and he's doing that to give me a little bit of a zing. That's right
I don't
around
know
the
where
corner from my
the
neighborhood.
first time I heard about Breezy Hill was 2 developers ago in a long time ago. I don't even know where Breezy Hill is and what it's going to become. Yeah.
It's a much smaller endeavor, rooftop-wise, than Southern initially had hoped for. It's the neighborhood right around the corner from Rivanna Village and
between
Glenmore.
and
And they wanted more density with Breezy Hill, but there was some opposition from that side of the county, and that opposition won.
I know.
So that's a good question. What is it going to do to the half-acre communities that currently exist? You would think it's going to drive value for them because people want a backyard. They want their kids to have room to play. And if, heaven forbid, we have any kind of other pandemic situation, having a lot in a backyard is good for families.
There's certain people that that's their minimum, half-acre lot. And if that's the case, sure, you'll wait till you can get something with a half-acre lot. When my son was 5 years old, we sold our half-acre home on a half-acre lot in Glenmore and moved to 2/10 of an acre in Old Trail. I'm never going back to. I love it. It's plenty.
Why, less maintenance?
But it's less maintenance, enough yard, neighbors that we know and love. I mean, it's just a whole different experience for that stage of life. Excuse me.
No problem. Neil says, Albemarle says they want density, but they won't approve it. Then he shares a Free Enterprise Forum link. That is in the comment section of my Facebook page. This show is live on 15 of those right now and 15 Twitter accounts. More comments coming in for Slater here. So the small builder right now, with cost of goods and labor out of control and land more expensive than ever, how can the small builder compete with the production builders? I mean, I've got to think that's got to come down to customer service, right?
Well, not all small builders compete with the production builders. You had Christopher Bremen on here, for example, Vermonte Homes. We have a few builders in this marketplace who have 1 foot in each market. One market being building on developer lots that you have to buy, put the house on, and sell the package to. A couple of those builders go in there but what they offer is more customization, right? In Old Trail, you have Southern and Craig, and then you have Peak and Arcadia. Southern and Craig have plans A, B, C, and D with options 1, 2, 3, and 4 structurally, and then relatively unlimited cosmetic options. But then, or you can choose and pay maybe as much as a 10% premium to work with a builder who's going to design that home for you, change it structurally, maybe start from scratch and design a one-off home for you, and that's what they excel at. And it's just a completely different animal. But Christopher used to be in both those markets, and he felt like he couldn't serve either one of his clients, so he decided to not buy any more lots and go build what I think is one of the better mousetraps for custom building in the marketplace now, because he figured out what he wanted to be, how to be good at it, and he built a team to do it. And because on the custom side, when you're spending $800 to $2 million for the home without land, a lot of guys can give you a very nice home, but they can't give you a very nice experience. And that can be the difference in how satisfied you are with your home.
Greg Slater, guys, killing it right now. People asking for insight on North Point. What you like about North Point, what we can expect from North Point, and deliverables for North Point.
So, I think North Point is just filling a void in the supply side of the marketplace. There are plenty of people who want to live in northern Albemarle County. I've never really done that much business up there. Before, the furthest north community I think I ever sold was Belvedere. I was sitting in a tent at Belvedere when the roads went in. right?
Really?
Before they built the models.
So Rio Road, right off Rio?
Yeah. And Belvedere was Old Trail and Belvedere kind of came out at the same time, different scale, same new urbanist concept, mixed use, a little commercial in there or whatever. Interesting times. Look, those two communities got really unlucky with the recession. Those developers had a very hard time. We didn't just lose builders, we lost developers back then. But, North Point is going to be a lot of things to a lot of people. But right now, if you're looking for a single-family home in the 3-bedroom to 5-bedroom range, you have two builders in there that are offering both products that meet the empty nester end of the market with first-floor masters, but any stage of family level of the market. And they started in the 5s, but quickly got pushed into the 6s. People are spending in the 7s, and a couple of times they've hit 800 in there now. But they're a backlog of about 40 homes that are sold. Phase 1A is sold out, and there's an example of the county causing a couple of. You could blame the builders for selling too early, but when you're in the 8th inning of the development process, so you start selling new homes, and then the development process goes 15 innings, and then because you can't even get a permit till that game is over, and then you order permits, and that takes 3 or 4 months, and you got people who are taking at least 12 months to get a home in there. But if you drive through there now, you'll see 40 homes under construction at some stage. We're about 5 closings. There's we call them the pioneers, right? The first one in any community. There's about 5 people living in that environment right now, but it's more contractors than homeowners at this point.
The follow-up question is, will we see a development like North Point again with the red tape and the difficult approval process that Albemarle has currently in play? That's a good question.
I would think the odds are in favor of that. The next one will be Dunlore Farm.
And Neil says North Point, to Greg's point, was first approved in 2006, he says. Think about that, guys. That was a long time ago.
Right, but Cascadia was too, and the recession came along, and the property changed hands a couple of times before someone could figure out. And then, you talk about these properties. It's not. I appreciate what Neil's saying there, but in reality, the communities that were approved before the recession had to become something different after the recession, even if they didn't go through ownership change and all the hardship of the economy back then. So.
This question, Dan Pettit frequently, he's Real Estate 3, as you know.
I know Dan Pettit.
I know Dan Pettit. So he routinely promotes, prioritizes, and champions townhomes. You got a take on townhomes and 100%. How it could alleviate a lot of the pinch we're seeing from a price point, especially for empty nesters, baby boomers, and first-time home buyers. He basically is saying, why not are we seeing more townhomes out there?
There's lots of
They're coming.
There's lots of townhomes out there. The problem with the townhome is the problem with ultimately the land is the problem. When the townhome lots get to 80, 90, 100 grand, under 400 is not really achievable. I think there's a community coming out by Ryan Homes right now that they'll actually have a 3 in front of it, townhome wise. But yeah, it's very difficult for builders to decide what they're going to build and what they're going to put in them and what price point they're going to hit. I can remember watching townhomes hit $400,000 on average and going, oh my God, this is not good for the market, and someday this is just not going to work out. Now they're at 5. And we're dealing with, at this bleeding edge of the market right now at Avon Park and Prophet Terrace, these places where they're just breaking ground and they set their price points and the interest rates have gone up, doubled if you will, and sales have slowed down a little bit. You're watching builders at the bleeding edge of the market adjust their pricing to make sure they have enough traffic coming that they convert to sales. The hard part about that is right now, if it was, and this is part of my job, sitting down with builders and helping them figure out what stuff is worth when they're building it. It's July. It's maybe the worst time of year to sell a townhome, right? This is a spring. If we're talking about first-time home buyers, when do they buy? They buy so they have some place to go when their lease is up. When does 70% of the leases come up?
Spring.
June, July, and August.
Yeah.
So they buy in the spring, hence the spring market.
Greg is dropping knowledge here. Kevin Yancey's watching in Waynesboro, and he says, have the trades returned back to the game? He says, essentially, I know a lot of them got screwed in the recession. Are we seeing the trades partners back working with the builders again, or is there still a significant shortage of trades partners that are slowing things down?
Look, I don't get too close to that side of the conversation unless the builders need to share that with me so I can kind of make sure realtors understand how difficult that is for them. But yes, I think there's still a shortage shortage in trades at some level. I think, when you work with builders like Frank Balliff and Christopher Brimmett or Sam, these are long-term local guys in the community who have trade relationships in some cases are 10 and 20 years old. And those guys get together and they try to figure out how they can both stay in business and get homes sold.
More kind of key. Greg, you are a popular guy over here. Which jurisdiction does he see exploding or coming into itself as the next Western Albemarle? He highlights how there's no half-acre communities in the horizon for Albemarle County. This is a follow-up from Spencer. Where does he think the business is going to go to?
Yeah, so I don't know how you recreate Western Albemarle, right?
Because of the school scenario?
Well, the schools in the mountains and I live in Old Trail, and I try to help people who say Old Trail's too far. I'm like, well, it depends on where you're going. I mean, I'm halfway to I'm right in the middle of 5th Street in Waynesboro. I can go in either direction, whether or not I want to drive over to the mountain to get basically the same stuff I need. But otherwise, just the setting and the desirability, that's a village of 10 to 12,000 people that's kind of self-contained. It's really unique. So I don't know that I would say anything's ever going to replace Crozet. But I'll give you an example. I follow how much the builders are selling and where they're selling it. And so the most sales this year have been made by Ryan Homes. 50% of their sales, and they're probably, they for most years, they were over 200 sales a year in this market. In the first half of the year, they made 73, and half of them were in Fluvanna, right? So I think Fluvanna County is ripe for development of property.
Whereabouts in Fluvanna?
Around the lake, right? Where the commercial stuff is, where that should be, right? Keeping it all together. And but yeah, I think you'll see some of that in Greene and probably Louisa.
The follow-up question is Augusta County. Your take on Augusta?
Yeah, so I have never taken the time to learn much about Augusta County. I'm just not an expert on it at all.
He stays on this side of the mountain, guys, as do a lot of agents on this side of town. This is a question coming from me here. If rates, we're seeing maybe one more rate hike, maybe 1.5 rate hikes from the Fed coming up. And then they're saying that rates will start to stabilize and then potentially maybe come down next year. If the rates start to stabilize and come down, will we see another push of sales and traffic with real estate here? What's happening here with rates as it applies to these DOMs getting a little bit longer and inventory getting on the market a little bit more, a little longer on the market as opposed to last year?
I think the buyers have just become way more deliberate and cautious with their decisions. So I'll give you an example. I listed a townhome in Pavilions last weekend. It was a unicorn, right?
Pavilions at Pantops?
Yeah. So
that's a great spot.
It's a great spot.
Yeah.
It serves a lot of people geographically. But here's what made this townhome unique. The average townhome lot in this market is 21 or 22 feet wide, right?
Okay.
That makes for a 3-bedroom floor plan upstairs with a nice master and 2 very small bedrooms, maybe 9 by 10. Frank developed Pavilions, Southern Development Homes, and he built in there as well. I don't know if there's a dozen or 20 of them, 28-foot wide lots. So there's some really big townhomes in there, and I got one of them listed. My client had already signed his contract with his movers. He had taken out of the job. They were leaving. We priced the home to sell. And we priced it at $425. I would think most people would look at it and based on the problem with pricing a home right now is you have to take anything that's sold in March, April, or May with a grain of salt, right? When you price your home to sell it, don't ever get behind the market. Let's try to stay in front of it. So that was our strategy. He took my advice, went on the lower end of the price range. It was clearly, if you pulled up the 17 townhomes on the market for sale and just looked at them as a line by price per square foot price or whatever, it was clearly number one. 6 people showed it in 3 days and we only got 1 offer. 3 of those 6 said they were going to bring an offer and didn't. And it's just not the same as it was 30 or 60 years ago.
How do you characterize the market right now?
Look, it's one of the slower, other than wintertime, it's comparable to wintertime. It's a slow time of the year. I don't know that we have a lot of exploratory looking going on. You still have buyers that need to buy something, and in some cases it takes something for them to want to buy to get them to sell their home and move type of thing, which is a slower process. But it is a market that's been boiled down to the non-elective sellers and buyers.
What's that mean?
I mean, you have a reason to buy or move. You need a place to live, or you have some place to go. There's less of the elective. I think the investors are anxious to get back into our real estate market, but I don't think they think it's quite the right time.
Matthew says, can you put a correlation between escalating rents and the increasing cost of newly constructed homes?
Well, I think the escalating rents is just merely the lack of supply for people who otherwise want to be buyers, and so they're forced to rent.
So no direct correlation.
I don't know what it would be.
Yeah. Good questions coming in here. Let's throw this to you here. If Fluvanna is your spot for a potential hotspot for growth, do you like green in a second slot? What's two and why?
I think green is fine. I mean, look, Zion's Crossroad has become what it was meant to be with all of that growth right around it. I can see both some of that development in the 15 corridor and the 250 corridor could make some sense at some point in time. I haven't sold anything in Greene County in over 10 years, but, it comes down to the will of what that government wants and what they want people to develop, and it plays a big part in that, right? Those are impossible questions to answer. The timeline to take some from concept to buying this land to turning it into houses, the developer is at the end of the developer has the most risk because they're playing the longest game, right, for what the market's going to be like by the time they get there with their product, and the builder's taking the next longest risk. The thing about our market is there's not a lot of speculative building. We're actually up to 40 homes under construction in Albemarle County that in some level of construction that aren't sold, which has doubled in the last 3 months. And that's because in these townhome markets, if you have a building of 6 and you sell 3 of them and you want to get them going, you got to start 3 specs.
Why is the spec just too risky now to pursue?
Well, if your production calendar is full, you don't build specs. Now, last summer when we saw what was happening, yes, I had very serious conversations with a builder I represent to time some homes. I said, if you have some room in your production schedule, let's start a couple of homes we're not listing them when you break ground.
Yeah.
Build them and finish them and put them on the market in the spring market, because it was that easy to tell we were going to have a supply problem in the spring. And yes, some builders were able to do that and sell some homes, because the other thing is builders can make a mistake by listing a home too early. Right, it's particularly when the costs started changing. If you price a home before you know what your costs are, it's a good way to get in trouble.
This question's a follow-up from Laura. She says, are most of the folks that are doing new construction buying the land first? What's the process for new construction when it comes to purchasing the land and then building a home?
Oh my gosh,
there's a lot of different ways to do it.
So Christopher and I work on that. We actually educate realtors on this. What happened this year when the inventory disappeared, we had a bunch of people who could not find a home that would be available in the resale market or ready in the new construction market, so they pivoted to that buy land and then go build conversation, and it's 180 degrees different than the other process, and we could talk about it for hours and hours. Christopher's actually created a class that we've taught in some real estate brokerages to help them understand it. But think about this. You've got to use different financing to buy land. You've got to evaluate the land for how it's going to be developed. Does it need a driveway? How long is it? Does it need to be cleared? What kind of septic system are you going to have? Where are you going to get the well? How's it going to fit on there? What's the architectural control of that land and the covenants? What can you do with it? And that's just to buy the land. And then you've got to go figure out what you're going to build and what it's going to cost and how that home's going to fit on that land. It's just couldn't be more different.
Multiple folks asking, who are the developers left in the market? Corin's one.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do we? I know some of them I know by first name, and I can't connect the dots between the names of their companies. But you still have Dice Hammer, Resort Developments, that's Belvedere and Spring Creek.
Christopher Henry, throw him in the mix.
Yes.
Would you?
Frank Balliff.
Frank's one. I mean,
Southern
Stanley, right?
Stanley is a developer and a builder.
So there's still. How would you characterize a fair amount left? I mean, a handful of developers are doing most of the business? I mean, is that how
It's always been that way.
It's always been that way?
Sure.
Yeah. Ryan not doing much in this market now. Is that safe to
It's
say?
because of the lack of supply in Albemarle County for them. You know, I don't know what they're in Harrisonburg. They're in Augusta County. They're equipped to take on the. Some developers like the Ryan model because it's almost a guaranteed sale of the lots if they can deliver them at a certain price point.
Quentin Beckham, welcome to the program. You have a handful of agents watching you on the feed right here. So, are you? I mean,
I feel like I'm in the hot seat.
Well, I mean,
you guys are just drilling me.
You're a smart guy.
I've got stuff to share. I mean,
No, please.
It's
We can
not
go
that
to your
exciting.
data.
We'll take the questions.
So, what's your take on how this rest of the year is going to play out? We had who was the gentleman we had on Wednesday's show from Ness? It's someone from Ness? Taylor Averett?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, he's
Taylor, great guy.
recently moved to Nest Realty.
Yeah, good guy, great agent. Spoke very highly of you and Duncan as well. I asked him this question: what's his take for the rest of the year of how it's going to play out? So I'll ask the same question to you. How do you think the rest of the year is going to play out? I mean, I would imagine your first answer is going to be, let's let folks get back from vacation and come back here and start kicking the tires.
I knew you were going to ask this question. You want the?
I would love your
You want
answer.
the intelligent donkey answer?
I would love
The
your
smart-ass
answer.
answer.
All your answers are smart.
People are going to buy and sell homes. That's what's
think
going
that's
to
what
happen.
Taylor said,
And we're gonna just keep monitoring it. I'm going to monitor it very closely. Look, I enjoy coming here and giving my opinion on or sharing my experience and my advice. But at the end of the day, I'm hyper focused on the segments of the market that my clients pay me to be interested in. So when it comes to the macro predictions, it's a little different because that answer is different whether you're talking about land, production builders, custom builders, townhomes, $1 million properties, every condos, different answer for every one of those. Those are all micro markets. I think though it's going to feel like 2019. We have to stop when everything you see in the reports going forward is going to be about how far off we are last year's numbers.
Pam was talking about, Pam Dent, current CAR president, quoted in NBC 29 today, talking about that, how far off it was versus last year. You're saying maybe not the fairest comparison.
Look, we have to figure out how to figure out the pandemic impact on things. And at first it rearranged activity, and then it spiked it. And so we kind of have to look over that. So I'm using kind of 5-year averages. What was the 5-year average? Well, new home sales, for example, last month showed us the first weakness in the market. The 5-year average for new home sales in the month of June in this market was 60. Last month they were 27. That's a 50% decrease. That's the first time we've seen any significant decrease in new home sales. But the builders I'm talking to now, and the reason I can't tell you what's going on in July is because of the way that information flows. A lot of times these larger builders wait till the last week of the month and drop all their sales in. Some put them on as you go. But right now, today, in the first half of the month, we've sold 15 new homes in this entire area. So we're probably not halfway to where we need to be. But get this, last year there were only 9 in July. But before that, the 2 years before the pandemic, there were close to 30. So we just have to keep watching these numbers and see how far off we fall and how long we keep falling.
Are the builders delaying projects strategically or intentionally?
Absolutely not. There's plenty of delays built into the process.
Understood. Okay, so they don't have to do that themselves. I'm just curious.
So what's happening with the builders right now, and it's different by builder, right? There's more homes in the pipeline sold to be built than ever I've seen in my career. It got to what was the number? So it broke 300, and it's creeped down to 277. And this month it'll creep down lower because these homes are coming out of the end of the process finished, and we're selling less of them. But we got to get that down to a manageable number. Some builders, you have a busy spring and you sell a bunch of homes. You might take your eye off of sales for a while because you're so behind getting permits, getting homes started, and what we call managing the unshipped inventory.
What is the data you came prepared to share with us?
A few things I share or I follow over the years is, and when I look at those 4 builders, those four builders, and I think I might have said it at the beginning when someone asked if the smaller builders are coming back. In the first half of the year, those guys only represented 53% of the new home sales that happened in those market. The 10-year average on that is closer to 70%.
That's a significant drop. That
It
shows
is,
that
but
the small builders coming back.
The hard part, that's one factor. But Ryan Homes can't get lots in our market and are building 50 to 70 homes less than they would have if they had lots. So it's not all that. And so when the hardest part about predicting new construction is what is causing the sales to slow down. We know there's some fatigue from pricing and interest rates going up, but we also know there's some supply side problems. If there were certain things available for the builders to build right now, there would still be things they could sell.
Is the market also interested in a more of a custom product because of the pandemic versus a production product? They want something that's
that's all personal and budget.
That's relative.
That's budget oriented.
Understood.
I think some of these guys now on the production side, we have to give people a barometer for whether or not it's feasible for them to go down that road. But if you're talking about custom building with the Bermontes and the Peaks and the Dobsons, those guys in that range of what's going on from $800 to $2 million for the project, we tell it's $300 to $400 a square foot without the land.
And production is what?
That varies by lot value and product type, but it's much lower. It's in the twos.
Okay, so you're looking at $100 a square foot savings. That's significant.
Well, you're not real. We don't look at it as savings.
Well,
it's about
price difference.
what's your budget and what would you like to buy? Can you afford what you want?
Understood. That was a better put than I said right there. Understood. It's all about price. So you feel, I love when Greg comes on, dude. I come out of here feeling a lot smarter here.
Oh my gosh, we've already gone an hour.
I see that. And we still have more questions that we're going to get to. How about this one? Last question for you here. Spring Creek is not close to sold out, right?
No, they have lots to go.
They still have lots.
I'm not sure how much they have to go because they're developing block by block, and I don't represent any builders. I represented builders in there from 2009 to 2015, and so I had a much better feel for that. But you'd be surprised if you should go take a drive through Spring Creek. They're selling villas, and they're selling the number one product. And I often told my clients, be careful if you go buy a non-first floor master in Spring Creek.
Why you say that? Because
it depreciates sometimes. That was after the recession because immediately the demographic for that buyer became empty nester.
Got a little older.
It's an affordable country club environment. And so if you sell your home in Northern Virginia, you want to ride your golf cart to the clubhouse, to the pool, to the fitness center, to the golf course, and you want to have that walking trail and just live behind the gate until you go literally now across the street to a lot of your amenities, both retail and medical and restaurant. It looks really good.
Toughest question I'm going to ask Greg Slater. How's the golf game?
My golf game?
Yeah.
It is okay. When my son was born, I was a pretty good golfer. And I put clubs in his hand when he was 3, and now he's 17, and he plays the tees behind me and beats me pretty handily.
He's teeing off from the tips?
He plays the blacks at Birdwood. I play the blues.
Okay, young Slater can rip the golf ball, huh?
Well, yes, he can. He's 17.
He's long off the tee?
He's long off the tee.
How's his putter?
His putter is very good.
Okay, proud dad over here.
He picks on me for how bad I am at it. That's why I know.
Oh, come on. Slater's still shooting high 70s, I bet.
Me?
Yeah.
No, not anymore. I shoot in the 80s.
Okay, and your son's in the high 70s?
Pretty much. Either side of 80.
When you don't find him, guys, doing new construction or consulting builders, you're going to see him on the golf course. Mr. Crozet, Mr. New Construction, Greg Slater.
And Mr.?
And Mr. what?
Ice Cream.
Mr. Ice Cream, that's right. We're going to actually be at Crozet Creamery this weekend. Yes, my wife and I are going to have, and our son, we're going to have brunch at Far Downers, and we were planning on using those Crozet Creamery gift cards you gave us, or the free scoop you gave us. So yes, thank you very much.
Enjoy.
My friend, any closing thoughts for those that are watching?
Thanks for having me. I
love when you come on.
I can't believe how fast the hour went by, and
you took every question.
I'm always happy to share what I know, so I'm just trying to be helpful.
He's great, guys.
That's how I add value.
Associate broker at Nest Realty, all around great guy. Judah Woodcower is our director. Greg Slater, the star of today's show, I believe. Is Keith back next week? For those that are asking, Judah. That's all right. We'll put it in the feed. I think he's coming back next week. For those that are asking, he is with his grandchildren in Connecticut with Yona and his grandkids. So he'll be back next week.
He'll be back on the 25th, so...
Oh,
yeah.
25th. So that's probably Wednesday. He'll be here for Wednesday's show. We'll figure it out. For Greg and Judah, I'm Jerry. The I Love CVille show, guys, that is up in an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you kindly for joining us. You guys have a good weekend and take care. Greg, nicely done. Dude, we took a ton of questions.
Whirlwind.
Yeah.